Hi guys, and welcome to Design Fundamentals Deliverables. I'm Ben Gribbin, and today we're going to learn all about what a deliverable is, and we'll also consider what you should actually be delivering. A deliverable is a term used in project management to describe a tangible or intangible result produced during or after a project. And when we say tangible or intangible, that basically means it could be something that's real, something that's virtual, or a document or a concept. So it's typically aimed at being delivered to the customer or client, and it can be anything from a report, a document, to a HTML design, or just your finished design. One deliverable could actually be made up of several smaller ones as well. So, for example, a design is a deliverable, but that could also be made up in part of the design itself, research documents, a design brief, and a specification list, as well as a round of mock-ups and revisions, for example, all of which a client would have to sign off. You want to introduce your client to deliverables earlier on. Set them out in the brief, give each one a timescale, and use them as the end of each creative stage. So, for example, your first deliverable could be just your brief, but your second could be the research and mood boarding you carry out, while the third could be a round of mock designs, and so on and so on. So we've looked at the brief in detail in a previous course, but really the brief is just an overall outline of a project, and that includes things like timescales, audience, specifications, and goals. And this is one of the first deliverables that you'll be making, so just send it over to your client and make sure they're happy with it. Now we're going to think about research. So forward your research onto clients. This will include things like experimenting with different colours, your findings about their audience, and perhaps mood boards or initial sketches. And you're going to want to package these together, either digitally or into a file or folder that you can actually give them, and make sure it's understandable to somebody else other than you. Include lots of post-it notes and comments on each element within that package, just so it makes sense to your clients. They can read your comments on it, and it does mean something to somebody else. You don't want to just send them literally a wedge of paper and photos. And also include things like wireframes, design inspiration, and try to get their comments on those. Next up, another deliverable is your mock-ups. After research, you have your initial concepts, and these are sent to the client so they can give you specific feedback on them. We looked at how we can do that in understanding design feedback. But also, as part of the mock-ups, you could have a sub-deliverable, which is the revisions of those mock-ups. So there's kind of two within one there. Then we have the actual design. So finally, in the design process at least, you have the finished design. Whether it be a website or a brochure, you will end up with a complete as-is mock for the client. That's going to have your kind of final style, colour, layout, typography, and the content that the client has agreed on. Effectively, for the designers, this usually is the last stage of deliverables. You should then package these as per your brief, for example, and send them the designs or have them built into web pages or for print or whatever. But obviously the responsibility and actual deliverables here will have already been defined. So your client's going to want sometimes the design as well as all the assets and things you've used in that design. So package it all together and forward it on to them. And you do need to think a little bit about your final deliverables. For example, when you're actually starting out on a project, you might have to think about the technical limitations of the final design. Is it going to be printed? So does that mean that you can't use chrome or glossy styles without specifying special foil printing? You may need to prepare your design for the web, and that's going to mean you have to think about the design, because not everything's possible when designing for the web. It's not an unlimited sort of sketchboard. You have to think within the limitations of coding, or the developer who's going to code it up. And most importantly, for the web as well, you should really outline interaction. Just because something's a link or something does a function and that's obvious to you, it may not be obvious to the developer who gets your design afterwards. So document, by any means you like, the interaction within the design. For example, things that move or have to do something, and point out critical elements that genuinely can't be broken down or made refined so that they display better on the web. Point out things that just cannot be changed. And finally, we're going to look at archiving for your portfolio. Now, producing case studies and work samples is very important in gaining new clients, so be organised when you do so. Don't forget as well to seek permission from the client for use in your portfolio. On some projects, you might have signed an NDA or a non-disclosure agreement that forbids you for even displaying that work ever in public. So get written permission from the client. And also think about getting a testimonial and results of the project to further back up your design prowess. Now collect all the necessary deliverables and you can create a case study to show future clients. Make sure to back up all your work onto an external hard drive, for example. And should your client ever wish to make changes or they move designer, then you can simply just provide them with a backup of the project. And also, if you were to ever redesign your web portfolio, for example, you've got all the stock, all the assets that you can refer back to. It's important you keep this organized, so work on a folder structure like client, then project, or even better, do it by year, then client, then project, and that way you can just jump straight back into your archives very quickly, find whatever you want. So we've looked at deliverables today, considering the brief, research, mocks, actual design, and any special assets you need to include, as well as the importance of backing up your portfolio. Now your assignment for today is to work out, for your next project, the deliverables. What will you be delivering to the client, and when? Next time on Design Fundamentals, we're going to cover Session 5, Special Issues in Design, Branding and Logos. Thanks for listening.